So, on a bitterly cold and snowy Friday afternoon in the nation's capital, what do you want to talk about? Things are happening, finally, around baseball free agency. Not much of it has been good news for the Toronto Blue Jays at this point, but thought we could get into a little bit of that quickly here to wrap up the week. As I said on the show that came out on Wednesday night, it's been a quiet week around here. Apologize for that. We will be back to normal next week, so stay tuned for that. It is Matt Robinson with you, as always, in the TCA studio. Hope you have all had a great week. And look, we have now seen Kyle Tucker find a home with the LA Dodgers out of nowhere. And perhaps even more out of nowhere, Bichette to the New York Mets dropped just a few minutes ago. And look, the Jays were obviously in on both. It became pretty clear over the last month or two that their preference was Tucker. But I think they always felt like they could circle back to Bo. And when I had got up this morning, obviously not knowing that Bo would turn around and sign quite so quickly, I did plan to come in and record today. And I had questions about the whole turning back to Bo thing. There's just always been something about that guy. And look, I like Bo Bichette. I'm disappointed that he's not going to play for the Jays anymore. I'm not disappointed that the Blue Jays will not be paying him $42 million per year. That's asinine. But I'm not. What I'm about to say about Bo is not meant to be a shot at Bo. But there seems to be something about him that he doesn't, and it wouldn't be uncommon in sports. These are all alpha dogs who have been used to being the best at whatever they do for their entire lives. I don't think he likes being thought of as the other guy or the second choice or whatever. And we saw that for years in Toronto when Vladdy was clearly the face of the franchise. Clearly was going to get the bigger contract when it came time. And he did. And Bo, while great, was still sort of the other guy. And, you know, his place in the lineup might be dictated to where they wanted to put Vlad. Well, we got to move Vlad up to the 2-hole. He's not going right, and he prefers it there or whatever. And if that meant Bo got pushed to 3 or 4 or whatever else, then so be it. It's all about getting Vlad going. And I'm exaggerating a little bit, but not a lot. And I think Bo had that in him a little. And so I did wonder, and like I said, it was going to be the premise or part of the show I was going to do this afternoon, about how he would feel about being like, okay, we didn't get Tucker, let's go talk to Bo. Like feeling like he was second choice for his own team. The Blue Jays clearly had put their attention elsewhere, preferred someone else to spend their money on. And only when they missed out on him would they turn and go hard after Bo. I wondered how he would respond to that. And it turns out we'll never know. This got wrapped up pretty quickly. We don't know how quickly, if at all, the Blue Jays did circle back and touch base with him before all this happened. But Bob Nightingale of USA Today is reporting that Bo had all but agreed to terms last night with the Philadelphia Phillies. And everybody had been hearing all week that the Phillies were the favorites. They had some sort of meeting on Monday. Philly, obviously a big market, willing to spend. Bo was happy with whatever they had presented him, and he had said what it's going to take to get this done, 7 years, $200 million. So right around $28 million per year. And I guess last night, according to Nightingale, Philly said, yeah, all right, we can do that. Now, no one had signed anything. There's always extra little wrinkles. You know, bonus structures and deferrals now have become a thing. We'll get to that with Kyle Tucker here in a second. But they had agreed to the biggest part of the term. And I guess at some point last night, the Mets, as soon as they found out they weren't getting Kyle Tucker, called and said, hold up, don't sign anything there. We're going to talk to you here. And they end up offering him $42 million per year for 3 years. Which is, I'm sorry, insane money for Bo Bichette. And it is tied to the Tucker thing. A, because it made the Mets desperate. And because the Dodgers had just shown once again it's only money. And the Mets have just as much money or just about as much money as the Dodgers. And it sort of became, all right, if we're going to get stupid, let's get stupid. And the Mets got stupid and Bo went, yeah, all right, cool. And the biggest thing here for both of these guys, but Bo first, is they also got opt-outs. So Bo has an opt-out after year 1 and after year 2. And that's important for 2 reasons. One, for his own peace of mind. If he doesn't like it in New York, it's a microscope there. He will be under pressure there. He's the highest paid infielder now in history. But also, neither of the next 2 years' free agent classes are supposed to be any good. There's not going to be much on the market. So you could choose to opt out of this contract you just signed and go and see what the rest of the world's got for you then. Anybody else want to top what I'm making now? Seems unlikely. But anybody else want to, somewhere I might be a little happier, somebody's willing to offer me a little more, and just be the belle of the ball, the one that everyone is bidding on because there's not that many superstars available. So he will have that available to him in after year 1 and after year 2. Perhaps after year 2 is more important, as next offseason, pretty much everyone is expecting now a lockout. Some of that is tied to the Dodgers. I want to talk to you about that in just a second. So we'll see what that looks like, how long it lasts, how many games are lost, and how all that pans out. And then he can opt out after year 2, now that we know, hey, did there end up being a cap? Did there end up being a floor? Are there new rules? Do other teams suddenly have to spend big? Maybe I want to get in on that offseason, which again is not so far looking like there will be many stars available. You could be a big deal there. So these are things to consider, and that's why these opt-outs are so big. Kyle Tucker also got one with the Dodgers, not after year 1, but after year 2, which put him in the same situation there following whatever the new landscape is going to be in baseball. And it does look more and more like there will be a new landscape in baseball. Bo is reportedly going to play third base for the Mets. I don't know what I think of that. Certainly better than having him at short, I suppose. But the Mets were desperate. After losing out on Pete Alonso, after losing Brandon Nimmo, they don't get Kyle Tucker. They had to do something, and Bo was the beneficiary of what Tucker just got from the Dodgers. Both in terms of making the Mets desperate, as I said, and no doubt getting that money up. I just told you it was going to be $28 million over 7 years with the Phillies. It's now $42 million for 3 years, like per year, for Bo Bichette. And a chance to, like I said, opt out in 1 or 2 or finish the contract in 3 and get paid again if he's still healthy at a reasonable age, like he'd be 32 at that point, I believe. So, man. But it just sort of came out of nowhere. And there's never been a more clear point A to point B in terms of 2 different free agents signing so quickly. Like, you can draw a line exactly how this happened. Once the Mets saw the Tucker thing with the Dodgers, they call Bo and go, here you go. Nuts on the table. Take it or leave it. And he goes, yeah, I think I'll take it. So it all happened pretty fast. We'll see how Bo reacts to the Big Apple. It is not the Yankees, but it is still New York. We'll see. There had been some rumblings, as it pertained to whether or not he'd come back to the Blue Jays about him being worried about playing on the turf for half of his games. I think that was while it might irritate him, might be on his mind, that was negotiation. Like, hey, this is a reason I might not be that anxious to rush home, because he had spent all last year saying, want to win with Vlad. Like, we came up together. I want to do it here in this city. I want to win with Vlad. When you do that, perceptually, you might hurt your negotiating power a little bit if you make yourself sound too desperate. So you got to get some things out there that suggest, yeah, but here's the problem. Like, here's why you might have to pay me a little bit more to get me to come back. And we'll never know now, and it certainly isn't going to matter now. But that would be my take on those rumblings, because they only seem to surface just here in the last 24 hours, and Bo's been in Toronto a long time. If he was somebody that was, really worried about the turf all the time, it would have come up at some point. Kyle Tucker. Look, clearly this was the Blue Jays' top target, and they don't get him. And it's interesting when you do step back now and you look at the Blue Jays, I was going to say lineup, but look at the Blue Jays as a team. Their rotation is definitely better than it was going into last year. Their bullpen should be better than it was last year. The lineup. They have lost some guys this offseason. So we've been excited to see Dylan Cease come in, and Cody Ponce come in, and Tyler Rogers come in, and Cosmo Okamoto come in. These have been nice moves. But you have lost Chris Bassett. Dominguez is gone. Bichette is now gone. You have some holes to fill. And like I said, you filled most of them, but I think we have to be careful not to get too excited about the lineup. The rotation, I think you should. I think the bullpen is going to be good. But like, in the lineup, are you sure Cosmo Okamoto is going to be as good and as reliable as a healthy Bo Bichette coming over from Japan? We don't know that. Different type of player, different type of hitter. But with a guy leaving like Bo Bichette, that's a huge hole. And I get it. He was hurt at times last year. And you knocked around the Yankees and the Mariners in the DS and the CS last year in the playoffs without Bo. So this lineup can do it, but there's a lot of question marks there as well. Are you sure? And I've asked these questions before, but stay with me. Are you sure George Springer, at now age 36, can do what he did last year? Because what he did last year was shocking after the 2 seasons that preceded it. He looked done, washed. You're just hoping to survive another year of George and then maybe buy him out for the last year. All of a sudden you get this miracle year at 35. Are you sure he's going to give you that, or even 90% of that again in 26? He might. That's on the table. It is one outcome, one possible outcome. It is not the only possible outcome. We'll see if he stays healthy. We'll see if he can perform at a similar level, even if it's not quite what it was. But if he goes back to what he had been the 2 years before 2025, that's a problem. Are you sure Ernie Clement is what he suddenly became last year? Nathan Lucas. What about Alejandro Kirk? I'm pretty comfortable with Kirk. But are we sure? I think there's a lot of question marks in this lineup that it's not going to be a bad lineup. I don't think it's going to be a problematic lineup. But is it a win the American League lineup? Well, we'll see. Kyle Tucker, as a left-handed bat to put probably right behind Vladdy, would have been the perfect fit and would have alleviated all of that between bringing in him and bringing in Okamoto. You kind of go, and a returning, I should say, Santander. You'd go, yeah, the lineup's fine. Plenty good enough to hang and win a division. But without Kyle Tucker, you are now certainly still capable of winning the division. Maybe even the favorite when factoring in the rotation and everything else that's gone on. The Yankees have stood pretty still thus far. I should say, since things are moving fast, by the time I finish this, we may have heard about what's going on with Cody Bellinger. Like, does Tucker and Bo going off the map make somebody jump and go, fuck, maybe we need Bellinger? A lot of the people I follow don't seem to like Bellinger as a fit in Toronto. I'd be okay with it, but certainly it's a significant step down from the two other guys that you were chasing. In terms of excitement level, I'm not as interested in that. But I should say, at the moment, he's unsigned, and he might be signed by the time we're done here. But that is the last sort of big name bat still out there. If you wanted to go crazy, you could go out and get, I saw it reported somewhere, or not reported, but hinted at in the last day or so, you could go and sign Framber Valdez and really put your rotation over the top, and then possibly use one of those guys as a trade chip to go get your bat that way, now that you have some rotation depth. And you already have rotation depth, but you would then have absurd rotation depth. You could do that. I don't think that's what's going to happen. The Jays could pivot to Bellinger. I don't think that's what's going to happen. But right now, this lineup and this team, I think, will be in the mix to win the AL East. I don't believe they are the hands-down, clear runaway favorite. And that's okay, because you're still miles ahead of where you were at this time last year, where no one thought you were going to win the division. But you're sort of in the muck with the Yankees and the Red Sox, and Baltimore looks to rebound and signed Pete Alonso. You know, we'll see here. Tucker would have made you, in my opinion, the clear runaway favorite to win the division and win the AL. But word drops late-ish on Thursday night. Yeah, he's going to the Dodgers. 4 years at $60 million per year for Kyle Tucker. And that is insane. All the way through this, we'd heard the Jays had a very competitive long-term offer on the table. I think a lot of people thought he preferred long-term. We'll never know for sure. Maybe we will. There'll be a press conference at some point. Some people had suspected he just didn't really want to go to Toronto and move to Canada. It's possible. But it sounds like at the last second, well, not even the last second, but the Mets sort of came in with this offer that was 3 or 4 years at $50 million, which was just insane. Now it was going to be his very short-term deal, 3 years, whatever it was going to be, versus the Jays' long-term deal. And what was his preference going to be? Off the top rope come the LA Dodgers. Come on out here. $60 million for 4 years with opt-outs after year 2 or 3 if you want them. Ding, ding, ding. Done. And this fires up a lot of the normal questions that we get when the Dodgers do this every year. Like on this one, there's a lot of speculation, and it may be correct, that they just sat there with their feet up, told his agent, when you're done exhausting everybody else and you get as much as you think you can get, come talk to us. Everyone believed that it was the Mets who'd offered 50. They said, okay, we'll give you 60. We good here? Yeah. They didn't do any of the legwork. They didn't do any of the negotiating. They didn't do any of the touching base that you have to do with these free agents. The speculation is that they had just sort of said, yeah, don't sign until you come talk to us. They looked at the number, yeah, we can beat that. And did. And now all of a sudden you have a guy with his annual salary even with deferrals, which takes it down to about $57 million a year, which is still just but makes him more highly paid than Shohei. You're like, are you serious for Kyle Tucker? But that was the point, was the higher cash value was because it was a short-term deal, not like no one was going to give him $60 million times 8 years. There's flexibility in this for the Dodgers as well. Yeah, we can afford it. We'll give you 60, but we don't want to do that long term. We don't want to have your age 35, 36, 37 season on the books here. And they might be in trouble by then anyway. Now, they do develop really well, but they have a lot of guys here who will age out soon. So it gives the Dodgers some flexibility to go, yeah, for 4 years, it's probably worth it, and then you can fuck off and we'll reevaluate the market. There's probably some other younger, slicker, hot shot free agent out there, and we'll want him by then. So there's value in this for the Dodgers as well, even at that absurd number, in not having to go 6 to 8, 9, 10 years. But man, fans are pissed off again, and this seems to be, for a lot of fans, the nail in the coffin that there will absolutely be a work stoppage after this season. And that may happen. I have no idea. You'll need a bunch of owners who are fed up with this. And what's important to keep in mind here is that the owners you would think who are the most pissed off, the Marlins, the Rockies, the Reds, maybe the Athletics. Where do they live again right now? The small market teams who can't compete are somewhat choosing to not compete. They're making all kinds of money off TV, not the same as what the Dodgers are making. They're making money off revenue sharing from the league. And instead of reinvesting it into their teams, they're just putting it in their pocket. If you blow up the system, and I don't think it will ever get this restrictive, but if you go to a model more like the NHL, where there's a cap, and thus there's a floor, some of these teams that are spending nothing on salary will have to spend more than they're spending now to get to that floor. That'll be the system. Whatever comes in, I don't know if there'll be a hard cap, but anything that pushes salaries down, the union will negotiate. Then there needs to be something at the bottom end that forces everybody else. If we can't all just go get our money from the Dodgers, then you better make sure the Reds start spending, the Rockies start spending, the Marlins, the Athletics. There are lots of these teams out there. The Twins. Maybe a little unfair. They're on a slightly different level. Detroit is cheaping out on Tariq Skubal right now. Maybe the best pitcher in baseball. And they're like, nah. So the money has to be in the system. And if you're going to push down from the top to stop people from making this kind of money, whether it's a cap, whether it's an even more restrictive tax, whether it's more of an NBA, is a cap, but with exceptions, it comes with something at the back end that pushes those bottom salaries up and forces those teams to have to spend more that are spending very little right now. So all of a sudden, if I'm sitting there and I own the Rockies, and I know my team stinks, and I know my team doesn't have any chance of winning, but I'm making money, why would I want to see a system come in that might jeopardize that and force me to spend more of it? So I don't think this is a slam dunk that this gets blown up at the end of the year. I don't know if there's going to be enough of those small market owners who throw their arms up in the air and get pissed off and say this has to change. But I do think it's on the table. And it's for reasons like this. The Dodgers have more money than God. They also have a suite. They're making over $300 million a year just on their TV deal. And I don't know the exact percentage. I have to get into this probably before the Monday show. But a significant amount of that is supposed to go into revenue sharing. But there was some sort of legal case when the owner of the Dodgers had his divorce and there was some bad PR, so the league wanted it to just go away. And they said, you know what? You just keep your TV money. It doesn't have to go into revenue sharing. And now this isn't TV money from Kansas City or TV money in Cincinnati. This is Los Angeles. That's a huge slice of money that even before when you were sharing it, was very substantial and gave the Dodgers an advantage. They now get to keep it. So that's why they have all this money. At least that's sort of the long and short of it. Missing a few details, no doubt. And so they just sit back and they wait and they wait and they wait and they see, okay, the offer on the table to Kyle Tucker seems to be 50. Looks like they may have pushed it up to 55. We'll go 60. You're going to come be a Dodger. You're not even going to be relied on to be in the top 4 in our lineup. Nobody's going to come talk to you after every game and bug you if we have a 3-game losing streak. There are bigger stars on this team. This is a sweet, soft landing spot for Kyle Tucker. It's a nice short contract for the Dodgers. They got the money anyway. They didn't have to do any of the work to get it done. It was just a wait, see what the best offer is, and top it at the end. Off you go. People are fed up with that. Fans are fed up with that. And even if these owners of these small market teams are fine with the system because they're making a little money, that money's not guaranteed. Like some of it is. Some of the revenue sharing is. But if it gets too, like right now, Kyle Tucker is going to make $60 million this year. The Marlins on their entire roster are spending $69 million. Now, that's by choice. As I said, some of these small market teams are cheaping out on purpose and could do more. But nobody else can get to where the Dodgers are at. Telling the Marlins or the Reds or the Rockies to spend more, go sign some players and get in the game, like that's reasonable. These are cheap-ass owners that are not doing their part for their communities, for their fan bases, for their teams. But they're never going to get there. I saw somebody say that it's because the Dodgers are spending 70% of their revenue to put back on their roster, and the Marlins are only putting like 30% of their revenue into their roster. Well, if you put 70% of the Marlins' revenue, that gets them to like $169 million. They're still more than $200 million behind what the Dodgers are spending. So it's all relative. There is blame to go around for these other owners to say, hey, you're cheap, you're part of the problem here, and it's true. But the Dodgers are a bit of a unicorn that have found a way to almost break the system. And it's hard for me to get too indignant about it. And I've seen Jays fans being the ones going off saying the system is broken, the game is broken, the Dodgers have ruined baseball. Well, you weren't going to feel that way if you had signed Kyle Tucker. The Toronto Blue Jays have one of the richest ownership groups in baseball. It's only feeling this way recently because they've started to act like it. But they are across the third salary threshold in terms of, as you go up and spend more and more over the luxury tax, you get dinged harder and harder. You're going to have to pay more of it back and be taxed on it harder. I think to the tune of 90 cents on the dollar or something like that, if they had signed Tucker. But you were going to do it, and you weren't going to claim baseball was broken. The Reds and the Rockies and the Marlins and these other teams that I keep bringing up would have been sitting here looking at you the exact same way they're looking at the Dodgers. And we would have been fine with it. We are one of the rich teams. And they are trying to act like it. They are trying to buy all these. And they have. With, they've done the Santander thing last year. We did the Cease thing this year. And Ponce and Okamoto, and you tried to do Tucker. You were apparently in on Bo. They are trying to be like the Dodgers. Maybe not quite to the Dodgers level, but certainly with the Yankees, certainly with the Red Sox. These sort of very rich and very willing to spend teams that aren't quite on the level of the Dodgers, but are very close. So you can't, as a fan base, when it works in your favor and you get a guy, be, man, glad our ownership's finally willing to spend. And when you lose out on a guy, go, it's not fair, it's broken, got to fix it. It's fucking loser talk, man. It's annoying. No different than it is when you lose out on a free agent in any sport. But the Blue Jays and their fans are the last ones right now who get to play this card that that baseball is broken and we need a new financial model. We just started to throw our weight around. So in my mind, it's frustrating that they have chosen this moment to perhaps change the system and stop us from doing that. Because we operated like a small market team for a long time for no reason. Well, not for no reason. They were cheap. Right now, they're not feeling cheap, and this is the moment baseball's going to put the squeeze on you. To me, yeah, that figures. But you can't cry about it. You can't cry about another team spending a lot of money while you are spending a lot of money and trying to spend more. I don't know. I don't think you can have it both ways. So I don't know what they do now. You could go into the season the way they are, the Blue Jays. Like I said, this is a lineup and a rotation and a bullpen that is certainly good enough to contend. Hang tough. Maybe reevaluate in July around the trade deadline, see who's out there and see who's available. The difference there is you have to give up assets in a trade, right? This, in the offseason, it's just money. And even if it's a lot of money, and even if it's an absurd amount of money, it's just money, and you keep everything else in your organization to yourself. To do it in July requires you to trade something away. So it's less ideal, but it's not the end of the world. Like I said, I don't think Bellinger is a great fit. We'll see. I won't be crushed if they do it, but I don't think it's exactly what they need. So they may just go to spring like this. It'll still have been an A-plus off-season, but you will have missed out on the opportunity to do something gigantic, which is fine, but certainly disappointing based on how in it on both these guys. There were points in the winter where we were, get both, just sign both. I think for most people, that went away when they signed Okamoto. But that was a talking point at one point. If you're going to spend this kind of money, just go get both Tucker and Bichette. To end up with neither is a bitter pill to swallow. Anyway, we can probably wrap it up here. No doubt Rob will have some feelings on this on the Monday show. Plus, the Sens have bounced back, a couple of straight wins. Another back-to-back, I believe, for them this weekend, so that's interesting. And then it's Marner week for the Leafs. There's always, now that we're this close to it, some Olympic talk, some Olympic speculation, who should replace Braden Point. Lots of stuff we can get into with Rob on Monday. We'll see what happens over the course of the weekend as well, certainly. Steve Bunda will be in later in the week, next week coming up. You're also going to hear in the coming weeks from Julian McKenzie. He's got a new book out, plus he's always just a blast to have around in studio. Have a cider with him, perhaps. We'll see what that looks like. Kevin Mickey from Sportsnet returning here in the next little bit as well. So things starting to come back online after a bit of an uneven start, a bit of a wobble coming out of the holiday season, just from people being unavailable, myself being sick, everything that's gone on. Things seem to be rounding back into form now. So we appreciate you sticking with us through all of that. My name is Matt Robinson. Thanks so much for listening to this. Have yourselves a great weekend. We'll catch you Monday.
That's it. I cannot work under these conditions. If anybody wants me, I'll be downstairs at McDougal's. Call the weekend guy. I don't care.